Now that's not easy in a world that's basically built on fiction. And not easy, quite the understatement. To me, these are the keys to the door that can lead us home, so to speak. To make sense. It doesn't need to make sense, sorry. I got caught. It's what allows me to feel very much at home within myself. And that's why I believe it's the key for us as a collective as well. Yeah, I'm a big child. Another key, keeping our inner child alive. I'm sorry. Welcome home. To my channel, that is. A place to call home. How many people do you think do not feel at home in some way? And this may include yourself. I mean, since you're here, this could very well be the case, right? Not feeling at home in your own house, with your partner or family, community, country, your life, or even this planet. Now, I don't know the answer to that, and I don't think anyone really does, but I'm pretty sure it's a shockingly high number. You could call it a woman's intuition or sixth sense, which are both pretty strong for me. But in this case, it's more of an educated guess, and quite a vague one at that. But it's not difficult to see, is it? You don't need a sixth sense for that. For how can we feel at home in this world or in any area or place in our lives when there's constant fighting in every direction? In homes, on the streets, in parliament, between religions, sexes, families that have been torn apart over all kinds of subjects, of which we've seen a sharp increase these past years. Different sides colliding, wanting to win an argument, case, or even war, or just any discussions about yet another one and who is right and who is to blame. It's not hard to see most of humanity will not feel at home in some way, since many of us know what that's like on a small scale. Having grown up in a household or place when there was constant tension and fighting, where there was no harmony, much less a warm and loving place to come home to or that feels like home. I have, and I consider myself lucky it wasn't worse. And I actually said that as a teenager to a sibling once while still in the middle of all of it. As far too many of our brothers and sisters around the world have dealt with a lot more than that, unbelievable and horrific things even, in their own homes or places of upbringing. But it did mean I didn't like to be at home. Neither did my siblings, and we rarely brought friends over because of this. We pretty much always went to our friends' homes, where it was and felt very different. And I'm sure many can relate to this. And it may sound strange, but I've never even felt at home in the town I was born and raised in, or even that part of my country. And I moved as soon as I could to a place that did feel more like home to me. One I didn't even know that well. Maybe because my parents and the generations before them have been from there, here, even though we hadn't visited them much at all. And I've never even had much with those family members. It's an energy, I guess, of this region or something that is rooted deeper within us. And I think that's where the answer or solution may lie as well, to find our way back home. And I'll get to that later in this video. Now, without getting into all kinds of ways and degrees people may feel they don't belong or not at home, I do want to state I am, of course, aware of the countless people who have had to leave everything behind, fleeing danger, extreme violence, and war, as well as far too many who literally don't have a home, which I can only imagine makes them feel not at home in ways that we cannot possibly imagine. But so I think many of us do not feel at home in this world, or life in general, in some way and to some degree, even without any direct reasons that we may not be able to explain. The answer? Well, I think this little blue orb we live on may give us that in a sense. Symbolically, that is. Because besides blue, it's green, right? Now bear with me, because depending on what you believe and your journey has led you to so far, it may not resonate with you or a bit too metaphysical or something, but I think the symbology still works, or rather its meaning. It is believed that you may or may not know we have chakras, energy centers, and each has a different color, the 7 colors of the rainbow. And in that chakra system, that according to some includes more than 7, by the way, blue and green represent the throat and the heart chakra, what we express and what we feel. And to me, the heart is also the home and what connects us to our intuition. And it's not just the colors, as the blue and green on our planet come from our oceans and trees, of course. And we need both to survive. Water also represents emotions, which you could see as to express not just anything, but what is real and genuine. Where trees are the heart of our planet, providing oxygen while alive themselves, with roots going deep into the ground while also reaching the sky, symbolic for our connection to the highest power, in my belief, while being grounded and rooted into the earth. And don't they say the roots of a tree go as deep into the earth as the tree is tall? Wait. Oh, by the way, I'm doing this with autocue because I'm just not great at just winging it. Most of it is channeled, and I always, when I have an idea for a video, when I feel like I need to record a video, I start channeling all kinds of messages, all kinds of ideas just start to run through me, and I think if I just get the gist of it, I will be able to convey it. I never can, and I always lose most of it, and I'm just terrible at just improvising. And so I decided that for the time being, I just do it on auto cue, just for the record, just to be straight about that. I just hope I'm not too bad at that. You know, it just, I start rambling and a little bit like this. So it's not a good idea right now, but I will work towards that, okay? And first of all, I need a significant amount of viewers, or at least an amount of viewers that, you know, whatever. Let's get back to that. Now, the reason I think our planet gives us the answer to feeling more at home on it and within ourselves is because I believe finding our way home will be through communication / expression and heartfelt living, following our heart. Now, to be clear, I'm not disregarding the mind, just not to give it too much power. It's like Albert Einstein said, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift and the rational mind a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And a faithful servant it should and can be. Like Einstein said, our mind and intuition are both relevant, but indeed with our intuition, which I believe is connected to or coming from our heart, at the driver's seat. Or, like a GPS does, telling us the best way to get somewhere. I don't know about you, but I've had my GPS telling me and people I know, with some of them great at directions, to take exits or routes that surprise or even make no sense to us. With some to destinations they'd driven many times before, honestly thinking it was the fastest way, only to learn the GPS had a faster one. And I mean quite a bit faster compared to what they were used to, percentage-wise, like 20 to 25% faster, so not just a few seconds. Now, using our actual GPS or intuition / heart's guidance mindlessly, so without using our head or eyes, might make us take a left or right turn into a non-existing road, a field, or even off a cliff. And you've probably heard the stories of some people learning this the hard way by blindly doing what their GPS told them. And translating this back to the heart, I've learned through experience, our intuition can sometimes tell us to go into a direction where the road is not yet there, just like in real life. So we do need to keep our mind with us at all times as that faithful servant. Jeez. Like when you would suddenly feel it's time for a new direction in your career, for example, and you would just quit your job and think, oh, well, my intuition will guide me to a great new one the next day or within not too long, right? So I'll be able to continue to pay my bills. And sometimes that may happen, but I don't think it mostly works that way. And I've heard some really, challenging stories from people who did do it that way. And, there's value in that. And there's very, see, now I'm starting to go off script a little. There is more to that, actually a medical reason, but, you're not going to care or be interested in that. But that's just why I really, so back to the script. So we've got to stay real, right? And I've also learned and believed there's a lot more to our human existence and journeys than meets the eye, like multiple layers and dimensions, than we can possibly comprehend from our limited human perspective, no matter how enlightened some people think they are, or may actually be, who knows. who am I to judge, right? Because as many believe, including me, and as the late wonderful Dolores Cannon always said, Earth is a school. We come here to learn lessons. And how would we do that if we knew the answers before we learned what we came to learn? What would be the point, right? So I see the mind as pretty important and valuable, for sure, but the overuse of or focus on our mind has gotten us, in my opinion, at the very least as a collective, way off track, further and further from home, or what feels like home. And what home is? Well, that may differ for all of us. For some, it's a place we feel we belong and just feels right. For others, it's being around the people we love, wherever they are. For others, a combination of both. For some, it's where they can do what they're greatly passionate about. It can be all kinds of things. The popular saying, home is where the heart is, tells us it's what we love, where we are or feel at home, right? In my poem, Longing for Home, which is somewhere in my first video on this channel, but I am re-recording it and will post it separately as I looked quite a bit scary due to mostly very bad lighting while reading from my laptop at sundown, so with artificial light as it is, and quite badly, I might add, because of nervousness for doing that video the way I had felt guided to do, because I know that poem a lot better than I was able to recite it in that video and have before. But additionally, to have a video with just that poem, which I think is a powerful and supportive message in itself for anyone who feels they don't belong in some way. And don't worry if you're not into poetry. I never was, still not really. I just started writing it at some point. It's nothing complicated, nor simplistic, I think. Beautiful soul, you need nothing to belong. You already do, simply by existing. The illusions prevailing are reality for too long that make us feel out of sorts. It's not you that was misplaced. So communication / expression and the heart. To me, these are the keys to the door that can lead us home, so to speak. Or maybe together they form one key. See it however you like. If any of this resonates with you at all, of course. Now you might say, but Monique, that's my name, Monique, this is the era of communication. People have never been able to nor express themselves and their opinions more than our current times, and things only seem to get worse. Yeah, I hear you, and I think you're absolutely right. It has never been easier for people to communicate, and they do, enthusiastically so, like there's no tomorrow. But you probably also know there's very different ways to communicate, which includes very ineffective communication as well as disingenuous, etc., etc. And then there's the matter of certain voices being silenced, hidden, censored, which I have experienced myself in quite disturbing ways, no matter how small my audience was. It was clearly about the messages I was trying to share. And, others have experienced this in much, much, much worse ways. Much more often because they just have done a lot more and reaching a lot more people. But I know it from my own experience. It's not that I just hear about it from others. That's all I'm trying to say here, I guess. And that's where I think the problem lies, in part at least. It's not that there's a lack of communication, but a matter of quantity over quality, heavily influenced by the narrow frame of what is allowed to be shared and seen. Now, quality in any area is a rare commodity, as it is these days, you probably know. And it's no exception when it comes to what's being expressed, and something that's rarely found, in my humble opinion. That a lot is being spoken doesn't mean a lot is being said. Now, to be clear, I do think there is some really amazing people putting out some really good and valuable content, sharing wisdom and truths. So I'm definitely not saying it's all garbage. Absolutely not. So please don't get me wrong. But, and I think a lot of people agree with me, so much of what is being communicated, and I'm going to be blunt here, is pretty much either static, white noise, distractions, talk without substance or even meaning, missing the point, unapologetically hateful, with a complete lack of common sense, etc., etc., etc. Let's call it fluff. Not to be confused with Fluffy. That man, Gabriel Iglesias, is a rare gem in this world. super funny, I think, while compassionate, non-divisive, which to me is one of the rarest qualities to have in this day and age, making great points while telling very entertaining stories, just being his awesome self. I say we need less fluff and a lot more fluffy. I'm also not saying I have all the answers, because I don't. Well aware of that. Just giving my 2 cents and perspective here for whomever this may be helpful to. I think part of getting back on track, and this covers both expression as well as listening to our heart and intuition, is not only to find ways to communicate more truthfully and effectively, which to me also means without creating more division, and that is the tricky part, but also to improve and cultivate our ability to discern truth from fiction in communication from others, no matter how impressive their following, track record, or even credentials may be. Now, that's not easy in a world that's basically built on fiction, as in illusions. And not easy, quite the understatement. We have gotten so far off course. I think it may be the biggest challenge we have because it affects everything around us, from our beliefs to our focus to how we feel about ourselves to how we treat others, as well as our ability to get along and coexist while having different opinions and ways of living. And to me, this is what it means to be truly civilized. I don't think the goal is or should be for us all to agree. The goal, I believe, should be in finding common ground while respecting each other's differences and see how we can work with them or despite of them or even make the most of them. So using them to our advantage. Now, as an example, I'd like to use the counterweight of an elevator because it seems kind of intuitive, right? For something to go the opposite direction to help something function more effectively, in this case going up or down, by the way, of course, because a counterweight goes both ways. Anyway, I used to think counterweights were essential, that elevators couldn't work without them. But doing some research a few years ago, I discovered they are actually not needed, but they do offer the elevator more stability and a smoother ride, if I'm correct. And this is how I see differences in views and beliefs as well. They're not needed to move us forward, but opposite views can help us to do so more smoothly and balanced, like that counterweight. If we don't get distracted and make it all about the need to be the only right or better side. For example, salty and sweet are quite opposite to each other, right? And they seem to clash. And if they'd only be focused on which one is better than the other, which one is nicer, which one is more powerful, blah, 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 we would never have discovered how awesome they are when working together, combined in, for example, salted caramel cookies, chocolate or ice cream or any other food with this now very popular combo, or how penicillin is a mold, or originally anyway, it's probably synthetic right now, which we would normally avoid at all costs, and rightfully so. But in the right strain, the right dose, and used the right way, it helps us heal, and quite fast. When we're dealing with an overgrowth of bacteria, our immune system just can't fight off by itself. Life and issues are most often a lot more nuanced than most like us to believe, or probably want to believe themselves, making too many things black and white, quite literally these days. What happened to the grays? And I don't mean those little alien figures, but just grays in general. Don't they have a say anymore? And isn't gray the color of our brain matter? You know, that faithful servant we should not cast aside, just put it in its place? Sorry. Anyway, over the years, decades, and even centuries, we've created a reality that is more a story that's being told than a story lived or experienced. The notorious narrative, I guess you could say. I believe when we can get back to truthful communication, and I mean truly truthful, not what is deemed the truth or sold as the truth or is the most popular belief. And of course, there's more to things, and the truth may not necessarily exist, except maybe some things are universal truths. I believe there are. But that doesn't mean we can play around with certain truths and turn it into anything we like, which is happening a lot these days. That would be like saying the law of physics doesn't always apply and gravity doesn't exist simply because birds and planes are able to fly, refusing to see why they can or understand why they can. And not a valid argument to support a case of questioning the existence or truth of gravity. So, how I see it, the keys are more or less truthful communication and authenticity. And with that, too, I mean actual authenticity. Coming from a true heart or even soul space. Um, Not people who claim to be authentic. I've seen the most fake people do this, but who actually are without needing to ever say it. You can feel it. The intuitive mind, as Albert Einstein called it. The gift we stopped using as a collective. But I think more and more people are waking up to the value and wishing to work with it again, or more. And I think this is where those deeper roots come in, to which I referred to at the beginning. What feels like home is exactly that, a feeling, right? We can't explain why some people feel like home to us, or why a place we may never even have been before gives us a sense of home. It's a vibe, an energy, which sounds vague, but we all know it, right? Those people who make you feel so safe, people we may have just met, that even those who don't usually are like that feel like sharing things they never would with anyone else. But we can also experience a person, situation, or place that just doesn't feel right. It feels off for some reason, or they feel off for some reason, without knowing or being able to tell why. And there's countless stories of those who have ignored such hunches and often regretted it after a negative or even violent experience that confirmed that intuitive feeling they had and now wish they had followed. We have been so conditioned to use our minds over everything else, we've become slaves to it. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the human mind. Well, I mentioned it before. I think it can do and create wonderful things and is or can be a true asset in our lives. It can figure out all kinds of problems and come up with solutions. But in my experience, it works even better when guided by intuition, the heart. And more importantly, makes things a lot easier. And I'd like to add a real life example of this, which I came across 2 weeks after recording this video. So this commenter says, I work in aerospace and had a problem we were trying to solve. I went home and asked the universe to help me solve the problem. Within a couple of minutes, the ideas came to me. I went back to work. People were shocked at how easily the problem was solved. This illustrates perfectly what Einstein said, and the intellect has little to do on the road to discovery. There comes a leap in consciousness, call it intuition or what you will. The solution comes to you, and you don't know how or why. Because you don't have to think of every step beforehand, for example, or plan everything out before you take certain steps. Well, in aerospace, science, medicine, and areas like that, it probably is a good idea to plan out your steps to take. I hope you know what I mean and that it was more like a general approach to life. And in my experience, it can even work against us, or it would against me, because circumstances change along the way and you can, adjust accordingly. It's not like, oh my God, now I have planned all this and I see these steps and now it doesn't make sense anymore. So to me that works. Oh, and even our tastes, talents and wishes can change, I can see. I don't need to know the ins and outs of why a GPS route is faster than another one. If that is what it said, and aside from rare instances it involves a non-existing road, which is where our mind and eyes or other senses come in and prove their value more than anything, for me it needs to make sense. It doesn't need to make sense, sorry. I got caught. Subconsciously, it doesn't need to make sense. It does. Sometimes I really wish it made more sense. And I sometimes am quite annoyed by the fact that it doesn't make sense. Oh! But so, the point I was making, it doesn't need to make sense. My intuition never has, yet, like I said, it has saved my life more than once. Well, it also allowed me to prevent a fire in our family home and helped me solve all kinds of problems with relative ease. By listening to the gentle nudges it gave me, as well as a lot of fun stuff I would never have experienced if I wouldn't have listened to it. Now, mind you, it's not like an instruction manual at all. So it does come with its own challenges that can be frustrating as hell, to be honest. There's just no way around that, I think. And it's a process that involves falling down, getting up, much like we learn anything in life, like walking, reading, riding a bicycle, a car. But living from my heart and listening to my intuition has helped me in ways I could not possibly convey to you, no matter how much time we have. And I believe it's what allows me to feel very much at home within myself. Not so much in this world or many of the places in it, though in some I very much do. Um, and that's already more than a lot of people have ever known, right? I also believe I've always felt at least quite comfortable in new situations and places quickly because of this as well. You know, I've always pretty much lived from my heart, followed my intuition, that fire in my family home. I was 10 or 11, no, yeah, 11 or something. I mean, I was pretty young. I listened to my intuition then because I wasn't going to go home and I just had a hunch I needed to go home. I was on my way with a friend to the city center downtown, as you Americans, I think, would say. um, yeah, and I was like, no, we need to go home. And I didn't know why, is what I told that friend. My mom reminded me of that a few years ago. So yeah, at quite a young age, and yeah, I'm pretty sure I've used that ability that we all have. It's nothing unique. I'm not special for having that. I just chose or was comfortable with listening to it. Yeah, for as long as I can remember, really. So, and that's why I believe it's the key for us as a collective as well. And like I say in my poem, home is where the heart is, such a popular phrase that rings true. But if we take it a bit further, what if our heart is our home? Check out that video if you like to hear the rest of it. I'll post it pretty soon. It will be the first after this one. Yeah. And if you like my vibe and what I'm doing here, or trying to do rather, it would help my channel greatly if you could put up a thumb or drop a comment, subscribe, whatever you feel like, if any of them. It would seriously help my channel and to get it in front of people, to become aware of my content and hopefully help out someone who may need it, which is my intention. And with that, I hope to have offered you a bit of light and a place to call home on your way finding yours. Take care. Bye. Tea and cookies. Yum. I'm a big child. One of the keys. Another key. Keeping our inner child alive. Give it some cookies. Great. I'm sorry. Not all the time, of course. I mean, in moderation. And be careful that your inner child should be old enough to be able to handle a normal, everyday cookie without choking on it. Anyway, bye. Even though we hadn't visited jeez. I can do this. Jeez.